Hello readers and writers, I'm MJ, and today we're talking about problematic autism representation in books. So I actually wrote a script for this video because I want to make sure that I'm portraying what I want to say and that everything I'm saying I actually researched beforehand. So I'm not going to try and read from the script, but I'm definitely going to be referencing it as I speak. If you go and look at almost any autism book list, the first book you will see is The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. But this book is a fiction book written by a neurotypical or non-autistic, non-neurodivergent author. This author admitted to doing next to no research on autism, and his only regret is that the autistic character was named as autistic on the book cover, not his portrayal and the harmful impact that it has had on autism representation. The book, it has a wide reception, it has a very, very popular play, and if you ask a lot of people about autism in fiction, this is the book they'll go to. In fact, I have seen this book on social media platforms posted multiple times over this last week as we move into Autism Acceptance Month. Yet, this book shows autism as stereotypical. It is a young male. His autism is portrayed as problematic. And it shows him being shameful and also him being harmful to his family because he is autistic. And it's just horrible, horrible representation, and has been spoken out against by many, many actually autistic individuals, and yet it's still the prime example of representation for us. But this is not the only book that continues to have this problem. In fact, over and over again, neurotypical authors are being representing autistic characters, and they're doing so in a harmful way. Another example is Red Moon by Kim Stanley Robertson. The main character in this book is autistic, and he actually breaks down into tears because he is so sad that he is autistic. And no neurotypical author has the right to portray autism that way, to portray something I'm proud of, even though, yes, it causes difficulties in my life, but it brings me joy to be autistic, and it brings me skills to be autistic. And to have a neurotypical author portray it that way, it is, and put such shame on autistic individuals, is completely unacceptable. One of the most recent examples is The Maid. The Maid is not specifically stated to have autistic representation, but it is definitely implied and is definitely taken as being autistic representation. And this is like the new trend of getting away with not getting in trouble for being autistic while being like completely stereotypical. And it's completely unacceptable. And the Maid is written from a first-person perspective, so the character that the whole story is being told is like we're getting the perspective of the neurodivergent, autistic-like character, and yet the thought process in her brain exemplifies stereotypical autistic behaviors. So just because you may see a flat affect on my face, you may not see a lot of big expressions when I speak, especially when I'm not trying to be expressive for social media, doesn't mean that I have no emotions inside of me. In fact, autistic individuals are actually extra empathic. If anything, we feel too many emotions, and that's why we have extreme anxiety and why we need to have sameness and tradition, sameness and routine. Because if anything, we're too emotional. And I don't even want to say too emotional. If anything, we have an abundance of emotion. And yet this character was portrayed based upon the outward stereotypical representation of autism, and it was just very harmful representation, and it's being taken as an actually autistic character, and it is not valid representation. And I do not know a single autistic individual that has read this book that is happy with this representation. So, using liberal estimates, about 1 in 100 people are on the autism spectrum. So, since there's about 88 billion people in the world, this means there's about 80 million individuals who are on the autism spectrum. And yet, mainstream publishing is continually using neurotypical voices to speak for autistic authors. This is why I ultimately decided to self-publish, because I knew that my voice was not going to be welcome in traditional publishing, because I was going to try and portray autism as closely as I could. Obviously, I cannot speak for every autistic individual, because like any group, there's variety and there is diversity within our group. But I hope that by writing books with autistic characters from an autistic perspective, that I will allow some people to see themselves represented in books, and not as stereotypical cookie cutter people that were created by all these neurotypical writers and extremely problematic representation. So if you are not autistic, my suggestion would be to make sure you're looking into who's writing the books. Don't necessarily take a claim as this is how autism represents. Know that no book, even written by an autistic author, can speak for all of autism representation. Don't use any of the 3 books I mentioned to speak for autism, because none of them represent actual autistic traits. So, as always, keep reading, keep writing, and until next time.